for my notes.
You don't need to apologize, Miss Waller. I found it frightfully difficult myself until I got the hang of it.
Thank you, Juliet. Open your textbook to page 17.
Sometimes I wish I could be a teacher in 1950s New Zealand and just get sassy with kids like that. But
what would happen if you did that today, Chris, in your Minneapolis class?
I'd probably get my face slapped and some cusses and
I feel like the only time I talked back to a student in my short-lived teacher career is when I got physically attacked by a football player.
That's right. I forgot about that.
That
Nuts.
did happen. Yes.
Nuts.
Heavenly Creatures, 1994. We have some guests with us today.
Yes. Welcome to Film Trace.
Returning guests, which are my favorite type of guests. There are Too Many Movies podcast. We have Chris, Josh, and Alex. Introduce yourselves. Tell us what you're up to. Tell us what's going on.
What's up? I'm Chris, the editor Collins, and I do all the work on There Are Too Many Movies.
It's arguable. I'm Josh Rodriguez, and I went to Film School University. I play linebacker for the podcast.
And I'm Alex, America's sweetheart Wilshin.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's accurate.
And I do have an ad read real quick, if that's okay.
Yeah,
Please do it. Do it. Love it.
Are you still jerking off alone? If you're looking for the best jerkmate ads, then you're in the right place.
All right, don't edit that out. We're gonna do the real ad now. Ready?
Okay.
All right, we don't edit anything out.
No, yeah, editing.
I don't have time to edit.
Okay, great. Well, patreon.com/there are too many movies, and $5 a month will get you feet pics, back shots.
Oh yeah.
They're all legal under Patreon guidelines.
Yeah.
Above age.
Yeah.
It's terms of service friendly.
Yes, exactly. And bonus episodes to our movie review comedy podcast.
Yeah. So, anyways, what were you guys saying?
On your own
welcome back, first of all.
Yes.
You guys did American Werewolf in London with us a while ago, and that was a really fun episode. So we're having you back to talk about
years. It's so glad to come and talk to you guys.
I know, right? Yeah.
We're having you back to talk. Stranger Than Fiction is our theme, our cycle this season on Film Trace, and we decided to do Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. And Heavenly Creatures. And so, we thought you guys would be great to sort of discuss these, especially Fear and Loathing. Pretty crazy movie, right? So we'd love to hear your thoughts and all your, opinions on Hunter S. and Johnny Depp, the whole crew.
Oh, God. Here we go.
Yeah, can't forget that.
Yeah, before we get into it, let's lay down the law, so to speak. We have to talk about the truth of where these, or it's usually a kernel of truth, where these movies came from. Before
or a dab of truth.
Yeah, a sprinkling of truth.
Yeah, even if it's only 5% true, why aren't they in jail?
Yeah.
As I was watching this, I was like, this probably isn't all true, but even if 1% is real,
apparently the whole thing is true, Chris.
A single scene.
I mean, it's all technically true in the gonzo sense of being true,
right? In the
lies.
What was that? What was that book? A Million Little Pieces, James Frey.
Their book of lies.
Yeah.
What did you? Okay, so the truth is that Hunter S. Thompson was a gonzo journalist, just like a madman in the late 60s, early 70s. And he wrote a book about his experiences going to Las Vegas, bonked out of his mind on several drugs and alcohols. And then that book became kind of a cult classic. And it had been kind of going around Hollywood for a while. There was a Bill Murray, Hunter S. Thompson movie in the 80s that flopped.
Yeah.
And then it finally got picked up by Johnny Depp and Terry Gilliam, director of 12 Monkeys, original Monty Python guy, and so much more. And now here we are looking at this film in 2023. Both Johnny Depp and Terry Gilliam are on Hollywood's naughty list now.
Oh, Terry is? I didn't know that.
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, okay.
I blanked out. What did he do?
I actually don't know. Let's hear it.
He beat the shit of 100 people at the Oscars.
Yeah. And that's the good stuff that he did. the Sarah Polley book that came out in advance of her directing Women Talking revealed that during her time on set for the movie Adventures of Baron Munchausen, she was a child actor, and she was horrifically mistreated.
I did sort of
abused.
remember this. No, I didn't know that he was a director, though.
Terry Gilliam was kind of known for just being awful on set to actors, and in particular, it seemed like he just straight up traumatized young Sarah Polley.
So
Well, as we always say in too many movies, if you want to make an omelet, you got to break some eggs.
That's right.
Yeah,
You gotta admire it.
that's
Yeah,
essentially
it's
what
true.
that is his viewpoint.
You know, it's genius comes with a cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do we? How do you want to even start on this movie? Because it's a weird one. Did you guys see this when it came out? Is a big question. When you were,
I saw it years and years later.
you guys are probably younger than us, so you probably wouldn't have been like teenagers when this came out. Or you guys? How old
No,
were
I
you
was
guys?
definitely a child, and I saw it with my mom and my big brother, who
Yeah.
my mom essentially walked out. She's not from the U.S., so I don't think she just like was really keeping up with what the story was. It's hard to keep up with the story,
It's pure nonsense for the most part.
and especially if English is your second language. She was just like checked the fuck out.
Yeah, no, thank you.
So I watched this definitely too young with my brother, and I really enjoyed it. I liked Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
at the time I was like, oh, he's funny. He's essentially a cartoon character in this movie.
Yeah.
He's so
Totally.
animated and like endearing. Is this one of his best roles?
I would say it is. I mean, not only the Riz, like the LSD infused Riz that he has,
Yes.
but also just the impersonation is
That's
really
ketamine,
good.
actually.
Yeah.
Oh my bad. Yeah. Well, it's LSD, ketamine, fucking
All the cool guy shit.
cool guy stuff. Cool guy stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Mescaline, all the good stuff.
Yeah. Mescaline, ether,
yeah.
alcohol, cocaine,
Made up
weed.
stuff too, like they're like making up drugs as well.
I thought
that's
for a second that was the case. Do you know which ones are made up?
Yeah, it's the Androna, the one of the
Oh
ends.
yeah, where it's like the actual like,
Adrenochrome.
Adrenochrome.
Yeah,
He
it's
made
just like
that up,
adrenaline.
and like Terry did, I think. And some kid or something came up to him and was like, "Oh man, that's exactly what it's like." He's like, "Dude, I made this up. Like it's not."
Yeah.
It was Chris Collins.
Buzzkill. But I mean, I think Chris, what about you? Because we're kind of the same age. I was like
Yeah.
16 when this came out,
Right,
and
so I was 15, and I
didn't see it till college though.
okay. I believe I also had an irresponsible older brother that we rented it from Blockbuster, I believe, and it was one of those things where it's like I was definitely like titillated by like the taboo aspect of it, but it was also totally like I was 15, so I wanted a movie that told the story and kept me engaged, and so like I have a very not so fond memory of just being like, okay, and then kind of like mentally checking out, maybe falling asleep during it. And then, like you said, college. And that's one of those movies in the early 2000s where it's like, you got to watch Fear and Loathing. You got to watch Memento. You got to like,
what's a cult thing?
Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All the new literally me for real drug movies,
Yeah.
you know?
But it never resonated with me. And I know, I mean, I'm not a big drug guy, but why did you pick this movie?
Let's be
Dan?
real,
This is
fellas.
your
I think
fault.
we all know what we're talking. I mean, come on.
Yeah. We've all done adrenochrome. We all know it.
Oh, why did I pick this?
Yeah.
Oh, Hunter S. Thompson's like my favorite author.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah,
Okay.
I love Hunter S. Thompson. Always have. Yeah, I don't know. It's here's the thing. I've read this book a lot, but I've read his other stuff way more. Like Fear and Loathing: The Campaign Trail, 1972. I'm always reading it. So I wanted to revisit this because he's like, the whole point of this cycle is like stranger than fiction, movies that are trying to tell the truth, and like this one's perfect because you don't know if he's ever telling the truth about anything. And this is his entire career is built on that line between is he embellishing, is he not? And if he is embellishing, sometimes he's even more true when he's embellishing. He's like literally the definition of stranger than fiction, right? So I don't know, revisiting it, it's been fascinating. I'm really interested in your guys' take. Too Many Movies, guys. How was the rewatch on this? How is it seeing it as older adult men?
Well, so I first saw it in high school, like back, when you start to discover all the cool guy movies, like we were saying, Requiem,
Fight Club,
Pulp Fiction, Fight Club. This movie is just the edgy side of cinema. You're like, all right, going down a rabbit hole. And then I had some experiences through college that made this rewatch it interesting.
Yeah, you pulled a gun on a woman in a hotel lobby.
Who hasn't though? I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
It was almost like a little triggering watching this movie.
Really?
A little bit, because I've been
Typical woke Chris moment.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Should we get into my knife fight I got in on LSD, or should we not?
Oh yeah, it's a fun story.
We won't get into it. But
That's for the Patreon.
Yeah, that story's for the Patreon. But he was naked also. But we won't get into it. We're not going to get into it.
Yeah, but he was naked before you guys dropped acid.
Tried to jump off my third story balcony, but we won't get into it.
Right. What happened after that?
But anyways, it made this rewatch interesting for me because it was like my heart rate was just a little higher than normal the entire time.
No,
like
totally.
watching this guy, like you're the like his gonzo journalism. You're a casual observer, almost from the outside. This like fourth dimension. You're not even like you're not at the race. You're not at the hotel room. You're like almost observing it from this weird like plane of existence where he has to also wrestle this real life demon, but also the internal demons of hallucinogens. So it's just this weird ballet that Hunter S. Thompson is constantly doing. So that was a ballet I've been a part of, but we won't get into it.
Right.
But we won't get into it.
Of course. Yeah.
So
did you enjoy it though?
Trauma dumping.
Did you enjoy it?
Yes.
Or is it sort of just like an uncomfortable watch?
Yeah, I did enjoy it. It was uncomfortable, but it was it had a new meaning this rewatch.
Sure.
We won't get into it.
Right.
No, we won't.
Yeah, I would say that like it's weird. I think when I first watched this in college, I was like, oh wow, like obviously the visuals are insane and they're extremely interesting, right? Like it's not like you're going to see a movie, anything like this out there. It's pretty much experimental on some level. But the thing that sticks out to me kind of on the rewatch is someone who read a lot of Hunter S. Thompson and still does, is it kind of, I don't know, to me, you could say, yeah, it's very chaotic. There's not really a story. All that's kind of the point to some degree. But I felt like it was missing something that you have in Hunter's writing. Are you guys, anybody else read Hunter S. Thompson? I'm the only one here.
I read the campaign one. I've never read anything besides that. And that was, I believe, something I only read because I was assigned it in college as an English major.
We're glad you guys, Too Many Movie Guys. You guys read Hunter S. Thompson?
So I actually, up until pretty recently, until my career, essentially, I thought this is what writers were like. I thought all writers were just like this and just quirky and weird. And my only two references for Hunter S. Thompson were this movie and an interview he did on Late Night with Conan O'Brien. And I was like,
classic.
Oh yeah,
this is the
So
weirdest
classic.
human being ever, but he's like an American original. Like there is no other person like him in the world. Granted, I've never read any of his work, but I did read his suicide note, which Chris, like whenever I was in film class with Chris, whenever we like essentially first met, one of the first things that he showed me was his suicide note, which was called football season is over. And I was like, oh my God, this guy rules.
No,
well, he wrote about sport. He started as a sports writer too, which is hilarious to picture him going to football games, just like tripping balls. Being
he's here covering, a dirt bike race, essentially, right?
Yeah. But it's always like he's just like, I had witnessed the start of the race, or what it seemed to be, and then he's just
like, can you get to it, man?
Yeah, and it's he gets all existential with it, but then I also show you his there was like this excerpt. It was like a day with Hunter S. Thompson.
Oh yeah, where it goes through like it's sort of like Winston Churchill's day, where it's like
it's like when he drinks and smokes and everything.
11. Like,
Pornography constantly playing. It's like 11 a.m. cocaine. 12,
Yeah.
it's just like all the drugs throughout the day, and then he sleeps for like 4 hours and then just repeats.
Like redoes it again. It's very surprising based on like he went through a lot of phases in his life, and I think by the time he got past this book came out in 1971. It was his second book, really. And by the time he hits the 80s and 90s, that routine you're talking about is like that's it. And that's what he's doing. But he wasn't necessarily doing that back in like the 50s, 60s, and 70s. It's like there's a weird thing about Hunter S. Thompson where, and this is one of the reasons why I never like sought out his literature originally, because it's like I'm not really that type of person, like it wasn't my thing. But there's a weird sense that like Hunter became a caricature of himself. So it's like when you see stuff like the Conan O'Brien interview or segment, it's hilarious. But you watch that and you're just like, well, this guy he kind of seems like a clown. And he's funny and he's interesting.
Outguns the gonzo.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And like he's obviously playing this part. But what's crazy about his earlier work, and especially like even something like this or what the Kentucky Derby one, if you guys ever have heard about that or read that essay that he did, there's like a lot there that's not about just doing drugs or like having sort of different experiences on acid or whatever. Like there's like a morality to what he's talking about, and you get that here in the movie a little bit. But I don't know, it's like as people who don't know his writing all that well, this is throwing this out to everybody. Do you think that like there's any sort of message to this film or any sort of insight that it's trying to get across? I mean, do you guys feel that when you're watching it? Especially
honestly, not that I picked up. It just seems like a sort of crazy time movie, and it seems to me like that's what the director wanted to get across, is just the insane feeling of being on all those drugs for like an indeterminate amount of time.
And not to be pretentious, but I did watch this on the Criterion version that I have, and I feel like this is it's a narrative on the freedom that we have in America.
Wow, well,
there you go.
Because honestly, no, I just thought it was hilarious and awesome, and I mean, I definitely think there's a lot deeper there, but I'm not as smart as Hunter S. Thompson, so I can't necessarily piece it all together. It's just a great.
Well, it's
movie.
not like it's like that. I mean, the book you kind of have to piece it together a little bit, but like, I don't know, Chris, what do you think? Did you get anything out of it? More than sort of a visual experiment. I mean, obviously the acting's insane and amazing by Johnny Depp and Benicio. I mean, unbelievable acting. But was there anything else there besides the visuals or just the gonzo nature of the film?
I know that I'm in the minority here, but I can't really understand. And this is coming from somebody who really like digs David Lynch and Maya Deren and lots of other experimental filmmaking, but it felt so flat to me, both originally and in the rewatch, that I don't see I don't understand. I don't get it. What is I don't understand what's entertaining, much less meaningful about this. I think that his use of language, Thompson, in the voiceovers and narration are probably the most interesting thing about it, just because he's a gifted wordsmith, but I feel like I have to push back. I think Johnny Depp's performance is one note as hell.
I like this. I like intention.
For the Johnny Depp performance.
It's those mannerisms and like the wobbly nature. That's just Jack Sparrow, right? Like he's just doing the same.
But I think you got to realize that like that's how he got Jack Sparrow, is by basically miming Hunter S. Thompson.
Right. So
he lived with Hunter S. Thompson for like 3 months to like pick up all of those mannerisms.
Yeah.
As well.
Yes.
He's such close friends with him. He honored his death wish of Hunter S. Thompson by shooting his ashes out of a cannon.
He spent $3 million doing that.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a long game.
Yeah.
And there's a hilarious, I don't know, Depp tells a story about meeting him, and I forget where, at some interview, and he's at some bar, and he's sitting in the back, whatever, and then somebody like barges through the front door with a cattle prod in one hand and a stun gun in the other, like like warning everybody, if you get in my way, I'm going to kill you. And that's his first moment meeting Hunter S. Thompson. And he thought like, oh yeah, this guy's pretty cool. This guy's a good time.
Yeah.
This guy's going to be one of my best friends for my life.
Just a normal man. Just a normal innocent
Just
man.
an innocent fella.
But I think the Johnny Depp acting here is, I don't know. I mean, Chris, I get where you're coming from, where it seems pretty one note, but at the same time, that's not that easy to pull off. Like staying in that sort of mode. You know what I mean? Like there are layers there that are going on. It's not just,
so convince me, what are the layers besides I'm very much on drugs?
He's so high. That's the first layer.
Layer 1, LSD.
there's
Layer 2,
paranoia,
cocaine.
there's fear.
And that, like I said, that was the interesting stuff. All the, and that's, I think, where Hunter S. Thompson as like a cultural figure is fascinating because of the time period and Vietnam and, trauma. But that's never actually like explored outside of the bits and pieces taken from the original text. Right?
I thought there was some PTSD and war stuff foreshadowed a little bit with it being on the TV and his little flashbacks that he would have. But if you didn't like Johnny Depp, what about Benicio del Toro? Because he's awesome. 100% convinced he was on drugs this whole production because he's either that good or he's that method.
Yeah. And he has a great quote because he did Usual Suspects and then Fear and Loathing, and then he actually had a pretty awful dry period. But it was simply because like people thought that was like his actual self, right? It was this kind of like muttering and out of it space case kind of guy. And he did this was like a thing, right? And I think 98 was also Copland when Sylvester Stallone gained a bunch of weight. And Del Toro did it again for this, and so like it's unfortunate that he as he says in a press junket later in the 2000s that he was unemployable basically because of how he had gotten typecast in the mid 90s with movies like this. But he's that is a role where like I saw layers, and like that was another thing. Like it's kind of weird seeing it in 2023 and the race stuff playing into it, like being referred to as the Samoan lawyer. But every time he brings up like, as your lawyer, I advise you, I did chuckle. I will admit that's a good gag, and he sells it really well.
Even Terry was like, where's the quote? Here it is. Terry's like, Johnny knew exactly what he was doing, but Benicio was almost completely out of control, which made us all angry. The continuity girl was shouting, "What the fuck is he doing?" The sound guy was complaining that he wasn't speaking loud enough. So Benicio wasn't the most popular guy on set. But then he goes, however, when it came all together, he was stunning, which I think is like, I kind of can see it both ways. Like it's a very fascinating performance, but it really lends itself to this sort of, you can't decipher anything that's going on. No, even as someone who loves the book, I'm like, I don't know what the fuck is happening here. Like this is, it's just very tough, and it's just vignettes sort of weaved together. Could you guys keep track of anything like the basic narrative that was happening?
Well, as someone that's done LSD, but we won't get into it.
Right.
He tried to drown himself in my toilet, but we won't get into it. Basically, there's a monologue towards the end where he talks about the culture and the 70s and the crashing wave. You can see where the famous line. Yeah, it's a famous monologue. I feel like that's what the whole thing is about. They were chasing the American dream, chasing this nerve, chasing something that was bigger than themselves. Something you feel like there is like some sort of higher purpose when you're on hallucinogens. You feel like there's like, it's like having deja vu for 8 hours. You're like, oh, I'm in touch with everything. And then you're in Vegas. You're like, aha, we're at the main nerve. Yeah. All the lights, all the drugs, all the things. We're chasing something. We're on a mission. We have purpose. And then there's the culture aspect of it. There's like the 70s revolution aspect. There's the war tied in with like the hotel rooms and all those little flashbacks, all these political things happening all at once. And then there's just these two like huge forces of nature powering through it. Like Hunter S. Thompson and his attorney, Benicio del Toro. And it's finally summed up at the end with Benicio del Toro, that little line where he gets him to the airport, and he's like, and off he was, one of humans' original creations, never made for mass production, one of one, or whatever he says.
That's probably my favorite.
Excellent.
Yeah. And how they can't escape each other either. Like Johnny Depp leaves, and then he gets like pulled back into this tornado of Benicio. It's like it's this frustrating force that like I don't know if you've ever been around humans like that, but they're the most infuriating people.
Yeah.
It's like this is like the autobiography of Doug Stanhope. I feel like
It
it is just like his life essentially. Obviously, I don't know Hunter Thompson, but like he's one of those same like American originals that is very much like that, and you can't replicate that.
This is a biopic, I think.
It's
a mix of
bottle.
it's a mix of a
definitely
biopic and whatever cultural wave crash is happening in Vegas in this early 70s.
But if we're just talking narratively, he's just a really bad reporter.
Yeah. Can we just talk about the race, man? I don't.
Yeah, I mean that's like par for the course. Like that's like his whole shtick at the end of the day. Like that's what he's doing. He did it for the Kentucky thing. Did he even see the race? Nope. No. He was just like walking around. He got in trouble for this eventually. Some big fight, I think, and it was in the pool when it was happening. He just doesn't show up. What's funny too is they paid him. This is originally supposed to be a 500-word story about the Mint 500 race. 500 words.
I gave you 10,000.
Yeah, and he just starts sending stuff over and over. Same with Fear and Loathing campaign trail, and same with this Kentucky essay. He just kind of he is like truly original in the sense that like you obviously can't replicate anything that he's doing. People have tried. What's crazy about this movie though is like you say it's a biopic, right? Which is definitely, I think that's 100% true. What's funny is that Hunter showed up on set to like oversee this. So he's involved with this whole production. And when he showed up, Terry's like, it was like the worst day ever. Because like Hunter wanted to be the center of attention. He was constantly on drugs. He was like interrupting things all the time. He's like, we could not wait to get him the fuck out of here. And it's just a weird sort of, if you, like you said, if you're hanging around someone like this, they're infuriating. They're, super annoying and awful. But at the same time, here's a movie sort of glorifying it. On some level, there's a glorification happening. There's not a lot of criticism here. There's a come down at the end, but it's not that much of a come down. It still sort of continues on. I'm like the freak in the freak kingdom or something, whatever the last line is. That's interesting to me because it's sort of like, is it glorifying sort of a certain lifestyle or drug use or whatever? I don't know. What do you guys think?
I would have been curious to see what Alex Cox would have done with the movie. He was the original director before Terry Gilliam came in. Mm-hmm. This is the guy that did Sid and Nancy and Repo Man, and he's got a really kind of like fascinating career in the 80s and early 90s that kind of shows both like the biopic side, Sid and Nancy, as well as just like the freak, like bizarre side, Repo Man. But Terry Gilliam, it feels like his whole deal since day one has been just like anarchy, right? Just like trying to like do the most and without, do it like the things that turn out the best from him tend to be things that have some kind of like centered performance or script behind them.
Like Brazil?
Yeah. Like that's a fascinating kind of fiasco of a movie that has like some meat to the bones that isn't like surreal or drug induced. The other thing that came up looking up Terry Gilliam that I meant to say earlier and didn't give a chance to is he didn't just get in trouble for the Sarah Polley stuff with Baron Munchausen, but he's one of the guys that kind of along with David Mamet a couple of years ago said some pretty terrible things about the Me Too movement and transphobic comments. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, who's the other Monty Python guy that did that too? I forget. Cleese. And there is like something there, like you bring up glorification in the film that doesn't ever quite sit right because it feels like it's, the purpose is bombast, but there is no I don't know. I feel like with Hunter, at least, like in those monologues, there's those glimmers of like trying to get something out of there.
Oh,
Now,
there's a whole undercurrent to his writing.
But it's lost in the movie, I think.
For the most part, yeah.
Interrupt really quickly though, Chris. Are you a fan more so of the Rum Diary or Fear and Loathing?
I also believe I fell asleep watching The Rum Diary.
Well, The Rum Diary is tough. It's a tough movie.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, The Rum Diary I thought was a better book, but a worse movie.
Yeah, I didn't like the movie version. I thought the book is super fascinating.
Yeah.
Because he wrote that when he was really young, and didn't get published till way later in his life. But yeah, interesting story and stuff, and really fascinating writing. But yeah, the movie, also Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, famously, that's where they met.
She's pretty
Didn't
cool.
come
Yeah, she's a
over
really
all that
cool
well.
Yeah. Are they still
He's
together?
making another paycheck off of it. And a glorification, yeah. This movie 100% glorifies it. I mean, it has to, right?
And to go back to the whole like time he spent with Hunter to Johnny Depp. I mean, there's lots of Rolling Stone did a huge long form piece. Obviously, that's where Hunter got his start, right? Or at least that's where like he got
It's like one of
popularized.
the biggest, publishers, yeah.
Right. And so they, of course, when this movie was in production, they did a huge Depp Hunter, kind of combo profile piece. And there's lots of like questionable stuff in there about their time spent together, both during the production of the film and beforehand. But the one that just like stuck out like a sore thumb, since somebody brought up Amber Heard, is Depp talking about Hunter. He says, Thompson zeroes in on faults and good points immediately. I was with Kate Moss, who he was dating at the time of Fear and Loathing. And I think Hunter went straight for the romance jugular. Shit like whether I beat her enough. I probably told him, yeah, she gets a severe beating. Depp laughs. So, and Christina Ricci's character in
God. Yeah.
I don't know that, and that's like, I get it. Like they're on drugs, they're out of their minds. But also, there's like,
but that's all. I mean, that's all in the book.
Of course,
like a reflection of what he was writing about, all that kind of
and
stuff.
that was
good or bad.
That was just like a general thing of the time period, right? Like there was a lot of It's I don't know if I can do it in 2023. I'm sorry.
I like Hunter Thompson. I don't like his writing. I like him though.
It's like what's crazy about that is like those profiles and stuff, like go back to like the Conan O'Brien thing or like the list of drugs that Hunter was taking on a daily basis. It was weird because Rolling Stone did this in-depth thing with Johnny Depp, like I want to say 4 or 5 years ago, and it was like the saddest thing I've ever read.
Oh yeah, that thing's horrible.
Where he's just constantly drinking red wine. He's got like all these like yes men around him, and it's just and it reminds me a lot of Hunter S. Thompson near the end, like past the 1980s, where he's no longer putting out good writing. He stopped putting out good writing in like the 70s. Like this is he didn't really last all that long in terms of like a really interesting like important writer. And then he just kind of becomes a caricature of himself and just kind of like implodes as a person. But it does make for an entertaining movie, at least, right? I mean, I think it's fun. The thing about this movie is like I can't take it seriously as an adaptation of the book because it's not a serious adaptation of the book at all.
I don't really care that he died. He was pretty cool.
I am curious about what people thought if there was like a favorite cameo, because I have one in particular.
My God, I got several.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Chris Maloney is incredible.
He's an underutilized character actor for
Absolutely.
sure. Yeah. Like Harold and Kumar is the only other reference that I have.
Oh my God.
Yes. But he's so underutilized. He can really just delve into like different caricatures and not be like that same. Is it CSI, Law and Order? I don't know.
SVU.
Law and Order. Yeah, Law and Order. SVU.
Yeah, one of those.
It doesn't have to just be that straight
one with the
guy.
rapes.
It can be different things.
Yeah,
and I love it.
He's hardcore in Oz too.
Oh yeah.
Not to mention his absolute dump truck ass.
Hell yeah.
Google it.
That thing.
I mean,
That thing
bigger,
goes.
but it's not a big deal.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. We won't get into it.
Gary Busey died. What about the Gary Busey?
Yeah, that was also kind of in
That was
retrospect.
improv. The kiss line was improv.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's not in the script. It's not in the book or anything like that.
Which
Benicio
one?
shows up. He plays the cop who pulls him over.
Yeah, give me a
And
kiss.
wants
I'm
to kiss
lonely.
at the end.
Yeah.
I knew
Oh
it.
my god.
Yeah,
I fucking, as I was watching that, I was like, I feel like that was improv because Johnny Depp does not know how to react to this.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
you and you're an insane person.
Also,
Who
really quickly,
else we got?
Flea.
Tobey Maguire.
Flea had some
Tobey Maguire.
excellent cameos. Flea of the band.
Oh, Flea's
Oh, yeah,
fantastic.
Flea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hot chili.
The Red Hot Chili Pepper. Well, he's worked with the likes of Damien Chazelle, now Terry Gilliam, and then also the Wild Thornberrys, whoever directed that.
Yeah.
Point Break too, right? Catherine Bigelow.
Yeah, that's true.
Uh,
Who else pops up in this movie? I think I'm
Did you guys
missing
say Cameron
somebody.
Diaz?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
Cameron Diaz shows up. She's in the elevator, right?
and the actual Debbie Reynolds, who I don't think I knew who that was when I was 15.
Oh,
But
yeah,
she,
Debbie Reynolds.
yeah.
The lady that did
and-
Alice.
Who else? Harry Dean Stanton.
Yeah.
He shows up as like,
Yeah. He fits in perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fun one. It's an interesting movie, but in terms of its trying to replicate, how do you replicate a basically like gonzo essay about life and drug use?
I think you keep it on the page. I don't know. I don't know
Yeah,
why
it's like it's
so many
almost
people obsessed with
unfilmable.
adapting him. Yeah.
What was
I don't know. I
another
thought
movie
this was a
that-
successful adaptation of not only like Hunter S. Thompson, but a binge, an LSD trip, hallucinogenic nightmare. I feel like one of the best
Like visual representation.
visual
Depictions,
representations
yeah.
of it. Yeah.
Also, one of the best
Totally.
representations of lizard people I've ever seen.
Agreed. Yeah.
And I've seen lizard people before, but we won't get into it.
Yeah.
We won't get into it. We won't get
No, definitely
He
not.
was
I haven't
freaking me
done
out when he was wearing that
LSD.
tail at the end. It's freaking me out.
But I have done Salvia, which is basically like that, but a way stupider
Yeah.
version.
But we won't get into it.
Yeah.
No,
I was in
no.
the Animus from Assassin's Creed, but it's not a big deal.
But we won't get into it.
All right, you guys want to move on to Heavenly Creatures?
Yeah. Now that's a drug trip also, right?
Yeah,
No?
yeah, sort of. 1994, Peter Jackson. It's the second Peter Jackson movie we've done. We did Brain. What is it? Brain Dead,
AKA Dead Alive. Yeah.
aka Dead Alive. What for our horror movie cycle, which
Yeah,
you guys were a
self-aware
part of. And so yeah, this is our second one. I had never seen this before.
Me
I'd
neither.
heard
Me
about
either.
it constantly. Oh, you guys have never seen it?
No, we haven't. And we just want to collectively thank you for choosing a movie that is one of the most impossibly hard things to watch on the internet.
How the hell did you even hear about this movie?
What do you?
I had to go to
Okay.
like a Russian website to watch this thing.
You're like VK.com, like
Yeah.
Russian Facebook.
Josh sent a YouTube tutorial on how to watch this movie, and then guess what?
Incredible.
That didn't work. So then we had to go to other websites. I personally, I don't know about you guys.
Oh, it didn't work for you?
No, it didn't.
That's really weird because all you have to do is what's in the video, and
Yeah, you'd have
it was
to do exactly-
so simple.
Was it?
Yeah,
Do you guys
didn't
wanna-
have
figure it
any
out?
trouble.
I did.
Oh my gosh.
You had issues with it.
No, I didn't. I called you to tell you, like, hey, if you need help, I got you.
Well, here's the point: is I have problem-solving skills, and I actually managed to do it without contacting any of you guys.
So thank you guys for creating a rift in our podcast.
Yes, thank you.
That's what we do best.
I had no issues because what I did is I requested it from my local library.
Oh my god, you're so old.
So you're a
I
nerd.
guess we're middle aged. We're getting
So
stuff from the
your
library.
community libraries. God damn
Yeah,
it.
it's free. It's free.
Yeah, honestly, Loki, the library is an underrated movie rental service.
No, it is.
Absolutely.
It very much
It's-
is. Yeah.
They got
If you're a
everything.
fucking dork,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Little known fact, there's books there.
Yeah.
Little known
So, difficult movie to find and watch. What did we think of it? What did you guys?
I like this better than Fear and Loathing.
What
Yeah.
the fuck did
Why
you
is
just
that?
say?
Sorry.
Fuck off.
Same.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So okay, so
Say your piece.
feel free to edit this next part out if you need to. But
We will not.
Alex, you're a fucking moron.
Can,
and
can
you're
I,
not
can I
even
real
on-
quick? Can I real quick? I'm gonna do an impression of Chris. Please edit this next part out because
That was spot on. That was like really good.
Thank you.
That was like
I'll do
Johnny
an
Depp
impression
as
of
Hunter
Alex.
S. Thompson.
Yeah, I'll
Wait,
do an
so why do you
impression
like
of
Heavenly Creatures
About anime.
more? Why do you like it more?
Yeah, why do you like it more?
it just
Prove
had
yourself.
an actual narrative, and
Yeah,
I
that's true.
just liked it. Here's the thing: I don't dislike Fear and Loathing. I just think that the best things about it are like the Hunter S. Thompson isms things, and everything else is so not as good as that I just can't really
Josh and I would like to collectively apologize for Alex's take.
No, I appreciate it. I feel not alone finally.
You guys can go start a new podcast called Wrong People.
We're called the Good Take Gang.
Anyways,
we should let's prep before we get into what made it a better movie. The true story, right, is a trial that kind of became infamous in New Zealand and then kind of trickled across the pond and became pretty notable simply because it was kind of an iteration. Once again, we talked about this briefly when we discussed the bling ring at the beginning of this cycle of episodes. Loeb and Leopold type case of like murder that occurs by some strange individuals that seemingly have no cohesive motive. But the thing that Heavenly Creatures does that seemingly no other movies that are like it do is that they, leave the trial out of it completely. It's focused on the relationship, the friendship that leads to the crime. And then you see the crime and that's it.
What it also actually manages to accomplish is that it's boring as shit. Boring as all get out, dude.
Yeah. Should have called me by your lame. Am I right?
There we go. Because it's gay.
Because the comments are between that and the other was that they're gay.
Yeah.
Well, like blue is the lamest color.
That crossover, which, if we're thinking about Stranger Than Fiction, wasn't actually true.
Right. It was that was fabricated.
They did not have a romantic relationship in the traditional sense. Mm-hmm. That was created to which is interesting because Peter Jackson, he talks about making this movie, him and who's a screenwriter, Francis.
Yeah, he's partner at the time.
Yeah. So they write this. This is one of the best scripts they ever wrote. They had a good time doing it. They said they basically became like hey,
this is a cool true story, but what if they made out?
Yeah, that's the thing. What's interesting about that is that was part of the sensationalism created by the media surrounding the murders. Because for some reason they picked that up and thought that let's run with this. But they didn't talk to the people.
The seed is that the psychologist that the parents hired speculated that was the case.
Yeah,
that's why they're
and homosexuality was a mental illness back then. That's what they thought of it as. And so, he ran. I just found that's a little bizarre from him. His take. It's I don't know. I mean, it's a weird movie where it's Jackson says he became obsessed with it. And he goes, we wanted the audience not just to observe, but to participate, which I think he's successful in. When you watch this thing, you're sort of you are pulled into these two young women's world where they are obsessively in love with each other in some sense.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in a platonic sense. I don't fucking know.
It's like a toxic dependency, right?
It's a codependent toxic relationship.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
Yeah, it's what you're always looking for.
It's kind of there's a modern word for it. Podcast.
Yeah. That's why I related to them.
Yeah. We also all make out.
Right. As a bit. As a bit. We're what if we killed our mom and made out?
Yeah.
Took baths together.
It's off of the Patreon.
Watch me kill my mom on the Patreon.
It's only $5 a month.
Guys, come on.
$5 a month for murder.
Basically free.
I know. I kind of, Fear and Loathing, it's a very interesting movie, but this one, because this came right after Brain Dead, it has a similar sort of hoary vibe to it.
Yeah.
It's over the top.
Wait,
there's these
hoary?
Horror.
Sorry, just
are you saying slutty or horror based?
Horror based. Okay, maybe a little bit of both, but mostly horror based.
Genuinely curious.
The style of it, it's the close-ups, the older characters look like they're monsters. Mm-hmm. The way he shoots them. There's the claymation people that are terrifying. I thought they were terrifying.
Yeah.
The thing about this movie is it's so successful to me in bringing us into that world that it made me super uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because I was this is fucking toxic as hell. Yeah. This is awful.
Yeah, me too, but it's because I'm homophobic.
That would do
okay.
It. That would do it.
How do we kick somebody off the call?
He's kicked.
Collectively, you can just edit him out. I like this.
But I think it's successful in like bringing us into that world, at least the world that he thought that they created. I don't know. What do you guys think? Is there something there? Or,
I want to hear about why somebody thought it was boring.
Yeah, Josh.
Because the Frighteners was sitting right there.
The Frighteners rocks.
I don't know.
True.
As far as the
Frighteners so
Peter
good.
Jackson joint goes, this is really tough. And I don't know if that's just
yeah,
growing up now with TikTok, where my attention span is nothing.
sure.
Is essentially, dancing videos. I don't know. I just could not really get into this. I mean, the performances are great. You have to admit that this is a stacked cast. Kate Winslet is great. It's just that like it didn't really catch me on really any fronts. Like I didn't think the story was very compelling, and I also think the cinematography was lacking overall. Like it didn't feel like a Peter Jackson joint.
It was pretty flat. I thought the cinematography and the opening not so much, but like the middle third.
And I have the Frighteners as a reference to like pre Lord of the Rings Peter Jackson, so I'm expecting like something really great. And like you guys mentioned, Dead Alive 2, that poster is iconic. Like it's like I was really expecting more and fun and bombastic, and it was just like, oh, this is a really quiet story overall.
And the Peter Jackson aspect is they dip their toes into it a little bit with the claymation and some of the VFX.
The VFX were crazy.
Yeah, like that's some of the only stuff where I've been like, yeah, that feels like Peter Jackson. But then the rest was like, I tonally, I didn't feel like I was on board, because it was like, you guys mentioned horror, but I was like, this is kind of a funny movie. Like it was,
I can see that.
I don't know why.
Like
it was just,
the way they shot the characters and stuff, it's like over the top.
Yeah, it's over the top. They got these wide lenses and they dolly in. It's like, I think they're more than friendly, and it was like kind of it was just a little over the top.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah,
the acting wasn't. It was a little Reefer Madness.
Yeah. A little bit of that B movie early Peter Jackson feel to it.
Yeah.
So
totally. I mean, there's definitely a B movie vibe going on throughout it.
I just didn't feel like it doesn't feel like a story that is about girls. Like, I don't think it was written with like actual girls in mind. It feels like a man writing about.
Yeah, they added lesbian sex scenes. So
to make it cooler.
Yeah.
Well, and to add to the mess, Kate Winslet recently talked about the movie, and she talked specifically about the scene where they're running around the woods in their underwear, and it seems like, it's the 90s, and there's going to be some pretty awful stuff that happens on set that would not fly nowadays. And one of the things that she recounts is one of the camera operators seeing what they were setting up for the day and saying out loud in front of young Kate Winslet and Melanie Linsky, "Well, boys, I guess it's hard dicks day."
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
That's documented.
You have to say that in a New Zealand accent, by the way.
Yeah.
That's actually a film set term.
Will gents.
It's insane. So
different universe.
But I do think
that man became James Cameron, by the way.
In 1994.
And he does the same with the blue people. What do
you computer control? He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
Oh God, the things he probably has on his hard drive.
Yeah, he went to go see the Titanic in that little vehicle just to say you can't park there.
So dumb.
Thanks.
Quite dumb, but
how do we move on from that? Jesus Christ!
I don't know. I mean, here's the thing.
Up, I'm kidding.
Well, we haven't said the E word yet, Dan, because we should get these guys' thoughts. Exploitation.
Oh yeah, this is extremely exploitative.
Right, and that's where kind of the discomfort lies, and that's perhaps partially intentional. But these
that's why
girls,
it's so hard to find.
Maybe actually these girls.
I wonder why it is so hard to find, because it was released by it was actually, who the hell put this out? Oh, Miramax. That's why.
Miramax.
They've clean
exploitation.
So Miramax distributed it internationally. And it was interesting too because this one, like Brain Dead or whatever, had a long, like, was in New Zealand for a long time, then eventually got out. This one was like concurrent worldwide release, so it was like a bigger deal for Peter Jackson. Yeah, bigger budget, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, what blows my mind about this story, and there's also like weird stuff that he gets wrong. Like at the end of the movie, there's that postscript where it's like, they both got convicted of murder. There's no death penalty in New Zealand, so they didn't get the death penalty. But they were only kept in prison for 5 years because of how young they were. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then it said part of their release condition was they weren't supposed to see each other again. That's not true. Like the New Zealand law people are like, yeah, we never said that. They couldn't be in the same prison together.
Manage that.
My sources, I made it the fuck up.
Exactly.
And the whole thing is like, it's also weird too. Melanie Linsky says they were filming this right on the spot where the murder actually happened in the Victoria Park.
Yeah. Many of the locations,
they're the real deal.
The exact same,
all that kind of stuff. And then she was like, but then Fran and Peter got too freaked out. And moved the location a little bit further away, and it's sort of like,
can we go back in the woods and shoot some more scenes there? Like,
exactly. It's it's one of those true crime problems, right? It's like making something about true crime. You're always on some level probably going to be exploiting the victim, and we don't. I mean, the victim here is sort of like, what's interesting too is in reality, based on like testimony and stuff like that, her mother was actually not nearly as nice as she is in the movie,
right? Yeah.
So she was a lot more harsh, I think, as a person. But it's just, I don't know. Yeah.
When did the actual murders happen?
54. Right?
And they made this movie in the 90s.
Yeah.
That's a window of exploitation, in my opinion.
Well, yeah. I mean,
yeah. So
like the bodies are pretty cold. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, entirely decomposed.
It's not a Netflix series where they're like, orchestrating murders to
What's
produce.
The line though? What's the year? Yeah. Jeffrey Dahmer? Is that still
right? Yeah, like those.
That one's a little more complicated.
And both of these people are still alive.
Yeah, because I liked it and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would say it was good.
It was. That one's a double-edged sword because like
he killed people with a sword.
Yeah, but also like it's just so many of those people are all still alive and relatives are still alive. Whereas like I'm sure that's the case here, but it was like. That guy was one of the most prolific serial killers and in the most disgusting ways
he's
possible.
One of the greats.
Yeah, he's one of the goats.
One of the all-time
as far
greats.
as they say. Yeah. So,
but it also had a shout out to The Exorcist 3. So,
true.
You know what I mean? It's got that.
Yeah. It also looked like a 10-hour Fincher movie. So there's that.
It's pretty cool.
10-hour Fincher movie. What's weird too is like these. One of the ladies here who's involved in the murder. She they both got free after 5 years, right? And then one stayed in New Zealand and just sort of stuck around and like she opened up an animal farm or something to help. I don't know, something like that.
And the other one became a pretty successful author.
Yeah, like a crime writer. She became a crime writer.
Yeah.
Well, write what you know.
Oh my god.
And we're back. The stint in our podcast is over, guys. We're fused.
Yeah, it's a go out on a high note. But we have to play trivia, guys, before we go.
Yeah, trivia.
Let's do it.
Let me run this down for you guys. I got 5 film descriptions for you, little synopses, and you have to tell me if the film exists or not. These are all stranger than fiction, true stories. Which of these became actual adaptations for cinema?
Let's do it.
In the 90s, since we're talking 90s movies, starting back in 1991, from the director of Short Circuit 2 comes the dramatization of the court case surrounding a traumatic incident that befell Linda Riss, played here by Daryl Hannah. In 1959, when her married lover, played by Dennis Leary, hires 3 men to throw lye in her face, permanently disfiguring her.
True or false? Is that a real movie?
Yeah, real or fake?
Like something Dennis Leary would actually do.
I would say no. I'm gonna say fake. Is what I'm gonna say.
There are too many movies, guys. We got some trues. We got some fakes. That one's fake. It's fiction.
Yeah, it seems like fake. The lie part doesn't seem.
But that actually did happen. It's a real event. It was big. It was a big court case on the East Coast. If I were to make it, I would. I mean, how do you not call the movie? You got to do some kind of pun with lie.
Lie to my face.
There you go. Exactly. Thank you very much. Next one. All right, Dan, you're 0 for 1. There are too many movies. You're 1 for 1.
Wait, no, I said fake, didn't I?
No, other way around. Yes. Dan, you're 1 for 1. There are too many movies. 0 for 1. 1993. This film, helmed by the man behind Roxanne and Mr. Baseball, an adaptation of a successful stage play, tells the tale of David Hampton, a gay con man and robber who convinced several New Yorkers in the 80s that he was the illegitimate son of Sidney Poitier, preying largely on the wealthy class's white guilt, and he ended up dying of AIDS 10 years after the film's release.
I want to say true.
True.
Sounds very specific, so true.
Yeah, super specific.
Anybody know what that movie is? It's a quite famous movie, actually. It is true.
What is it?
6 Degrees of Separation.
Oh, okay.
With
cool.
Will Smith as David Hampton. Okay.
All right.
1 or 2 for 2, Dan. 1 for 2. There are too many movies. 96. A dramedy starring Halle Berry, Eliza Dushku, and Casey Affleck, and co-written by the guy who penned Rain Man. This flick tells the story of a group of high schoolers that lie about their ages and manage to take first place with the clandestine help of their shop teacher, played by Jim Belushi, in the Solar Car World Champion race in Hawaii.
God, that sounds so
False.
stupid.
That is too diverse for the 90s.
Yeah, I'm going to say false, too. It sounds so dumb.
That one's real.
Oh, fuck you.
It's called Race the Sun. It made $2 million, and Austin Chronicle film critic Hollis Chacona referred to it as, quote, hot runnings.
I love it.
Okay, we don't have to keep score anymore. 97. Let's finish this up. I think you're doing better than last time, though, Dan.
Yeah, I am a little bit better.
From director Emilio Estevez. That's right, director Emilio Estevez. This bizarre dark comedy centers on the inhabitants of the very real Vernon, Florida, the town that in the 80s had the nation's highest per capita population of amputations and became known as, quote, Nub City. When Josh Terry, played by Dana Carvey, moves in and realizes his new home's reputation, he cautiously goes about his days, narrowly avoiding serious injury over and over again.
What do you guys think? You guys go first.
That sounds insane. Who would name anything Nub City? I'm going false.
I'm going
Say-
false.
I'm going to say true.
Wait, can I phone a friend?
Yeah.
No, we don't have time for that. It's technically it's fake. It was kind of a trick question because it was an Errol Morris documentary about a very real place. But yeah, I mean, I want to make that movie with Dana Carvey. I think he could still pull it off.
Would really shine in that role,
right? Master of Disguise and everything. 99, last one.
Okay.
Are you doing? I think you guessed fake for that one, right, Dan?
Yeah. No, wait. I said true. I don't remember.
Okay, whatever.
Doesn't matter anymore.
Let's. Yeah, no.
Yeah, just to clarify, we are winning.
The guests are the champions, unless Dan. Can you get this one?
Yes.
99. A big swing from Frank Marshall, the Hollywood hired hand behind other Stranger Than Fiction 90s staples like Alive and Michael Crichton's Congo. That's real, right? That was a real story? This film outlines the escapades of math teacher Ted Slauson, played by Tim Roth, who was investigated by a CBS executive played by a gender-swapped Winona Ryder for his near-perfect performance on the game show The Price is Right, including a 100% accurate Showcase Showdown estimate.
Say true.
True.
False.
That one's fake. That's true story.
True story. Yeah, it's a true story.
Yeah. Shout out to math teachers. There's so many good titles you could come up with for that one, though, right? Like, I feel like
I'm not a good title guy.
Anyways, thank you guys for playing. It's insane how many 90s movies that were Stranger Than Fiction that I disqualified for this episode's trivia because they were made for television. But like, if you want some good, like fucked up,
so much
true
trash.
story movies, check out 90s made for TV.
It's because cable was like booming back then. They needed content, kind of like what streaming is now, right?
Yeah, Content Factory. Hey, there are too many movies, guys. Josh, Alex, Chris, thanks so much for joining us to talk Fear and Loathing and Heavenly Creatures. We appreciate it. Do one more shout out. Where can people find you on, the things?
There are too many movies on the internet. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, YouTube, patreon.com/there are too many movies.
What are you guys doing next? What's your next episode on?
So next episode is Chris's birthday episode. So we are doing Small Soldiers.
A classic.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Joe Dante.
So for our birthdays, we always do like a Ruin Your Childhood episode, and we watch an episode from our childhood and see if it still holds up.
It's the greatest gift.
Spoilers. This one holds up.
It does. It's really it's well written.
Yeah, I think it actually gets better with age.
Yeah,
it's a great
very
Joe
clever.
Dante. It's an incredible film.
I want a Small Soldiers too. Like honestly, why hasn't this franchise? It's so
I know.
franchisable.
Yeah.
Right.
It is.
Oh, Dennis Leary too, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
David Cross.
Jay Moore.
Awesome, guys. Thanks for being on the show. This has been Film Trace.